We are now joined by our guest, Mr. Hassan Khavar, an economic analyst. Thank you for joining us, sir. Mr. Khavar, IMF has asked PTI to give up its powers on notifications of electricity rates, which it believes is time-consuming and has been a cause of circular debt. What are your comments on that?
So if you look at an example from another sector, and if you look at gas tariffs, OGRA recommended a change many months ago during the tenure of the last government. Then we had a caretaker government, and then finally, after a delay of many months, the new government had to increase the tariff. And these are the delays that such automatic notifications can avoid. If the government wants to subsidize it, they can pre-announce the subsidy and inform the regulator that this is what you need to build into your scenarios. So I think it's a very good move if it happens.
Now, if amendments are to be made in NEPRA Act, then an automatic notification of quarterly and annual tariff notifications will be determined by a pattern of a monthly fuel price adjustment. How sustainable is this system going to be in Pakistan?
So if you look at all the other countries, there are many examples of these multi-year tariffs, and generally they are announced for 5 years. If the government does it as proposed, then I think it will create more visibility into how the tariff is going to evolve. The discos are going to be more informed about their liabilities. And of course, the government will be able to forecast the circular debt. But there is a risk there because in order to announce sound multi-year tariffs, you need to be able to project your needs and you need to be able to announce a schedule for O&M and capex investments. So the government has to really do some introspection that can it hold discourse to that standard and that schedule? If it can, I think it's a good move, and it's a move towards moving towards how it's being done in other countries.
Right, and can such an amendment bring stability in our economy for a long term?
So that's, I think, $1 million question. I believe that this is a step in the right direction. But to be able to believe that this amendment alone will bring stability in the economic system, I think that's a far-fetched idea. A lot more needs to be done. It is one thing to know more about your circular debt projection, and it's another thing to manage that. And if the government really wants to correct this sector, reform this sector, then what it needs is political will. It needs increased recoveries, and the longer run, a better energy mix. And this is just the first step.
Now, Mr. Khavar, IMF has dire projections for Pakistan in terms of its GDP growth rate, inflation rate and the fiscal deficit. So, do you think the government can still promise to ease the burden for the general public despite the austerity measures?
So, somebody told me that it's like, right now, it's like pouring water on an overheated engine. And I really like that analogy. So, I don't think in the short term, there is going to be any good news. What the government, though, can do is to make better use of existing resources, do better resource allocation, and use this opportunity to cut down wasteful expenditure. If you look at PTI's manifesto and PTI's promises, they said that they want to promote austerity. And if the government can seriously do that, it can create some fiscal space, additional fiscal space, and use that to ease the burden on public. But I think in the medium term, it's going to be economically a little hard scenario for us.
In its latest regional economic outlook, IMF has warned that Pakistan's debt level is likely to remain high. Now, why is there no immediate relief for us?
I think it is because of the external factors. So if you look at the last government tenure, you would remember that the oil prices were coming down and the interest rates were not so high. I think what they are trying to say is that in the current scenario where oil price is projected to go high and the interest rates are rising, even if you do fiscal adjustment, that's not going to yield the kind of results you would have expected a few years ago. And if you look at Pakistan's government debt, the domestic and foreign debt are increasing, and that's common knowledge. But the maturities are also shortening, and the interest rates globally going high. Even in Pakistan, a significant part of our domestic debt is short term, and that makes it a floating exchange rate. So I think in the short term, you'll need to do more. And secondly, I think in the longer run, if you look at debt, debt is nothing else but the accumulation of your deficit. If you keep on incurring fiscal deficits, your debt will keep on increasing. And there is no shortcut to it. So you need to do more than what you would have done a few years ago. And you also need to cut down the deficits to expect it.
Thank you for joining us on the show.